Medium has been going through a lot of changes recently, but Medium has always gone through changes. I've been on the platform medium.com for the past 5 years, and I've seen it go through a number of different changes and iterations, and I've always found a way to adapt and continue to have success on the platform. Regardless of what I see happening on the platform, at least for right now, I'm still bullish on Medium, and I'm still bullish on Medium for beginners who are just getting started. So for those of you who are just getting started, those of you who are already active on Medium, those of you who are even experienced on Medium and you're noticing changes and you have questions and maybe you're frustrated, maybe you don't know what to do, maybe you don't know how to get started, all the above, I'm going to give you some quick tips today to deal with Medium's changing landscape. So tip number one is this idea of bend, but don't break, right? So Medium from time to time changes its guidelines, and you got to do the best to adhere to those guidelines without changing kind of the fundamental core of your message. So one of the guidelines Medium has put out recently is this policy against clickbait articles. So in their mind, they're trying to reduce the amount of clickbait on the website so that they can have a more positive and conversational relationship between the readers and writers. They want to make sure that you're not making overhyped promises. So that kind of goes against some of the things that I've taught blogging, through the traditional blogging techniques that I've learned, where I talk about putting benefits and promises in aspirational outcomes in your headlines. I talk about things like using list posts. I talk about how-to articles. I talk about strategies to kind of use the psychology and the emotions of the readers to get them to click. Now, what have I done in response to those changes? I simply test different iterations of my headlines without changing the fundamental structure of what I write about. So I'll write an article about self-improvement, right? That's still my topic. So instead of doing something like saying, you must follow these 10 rules to be successful, I'll say something along the lines of, you can follow these 10 rules to be successful. Instead of saying something like, use these 5 tips to dramatically shift and transform your life, I might tweak it down to something like 5 strategies to cause subtle shifts in your life that might lead to major growth, something like that, right? So you always want to pay attention to what the curators are looking for, but you never want to change your fundamental messaging. I'm not going to stop writing about topics I care about altogether because they might be associated with clickbait or they might be associated with topics that Medium is steering away from a little bit, right? They're always tweaking things and trying to enhance them a little bit, but that doesn't mean you have to stray away from your message. So write the stuff you want to write about. Use the techniques to get people to read your articles because you still want people to get in and read. But just make sure that you are keeping pace with Medium's guidelines so you bend a little bit, but you don't break. The next tip is to always focus on what Medium is incentivizing when it comes to getting you paid, right? So when I first started writing on Medium's partner program, claps were the number one metric that were used to judge your payments. So the more claps you got and the more share of each individual member's claps you got, the higher earnings. They switched to a model where they are basing the amount of money you earn, on read time. So the more times people spend reading on your articles, and more specifically, the more share of each person's time you get from their $5 membership, the more money you're going to make overall. So think about how you can tweak your content to get people to read more often or get people to read your articles longer. Are you writing articles that have a lot of dead space in between them where people aren't highlighting a bunch, where people aren't engaging with your work? Maybe look at those sections and think about removing similar type of content in the future. Look at some of your statistics on the amount of time people spend reading your articles. So some of your articles, the ones that are going to be successful, are probably going to have a higher average read time, and some of them that aren't as successful are going to have a lower average read time. So what are some of the things that are in common with the ones that have your high average reading time and the ones that are low? Maybe the high average read times have similar topics, which lets you know that people are kind of interested in that direction. Maybe it's the way you styled those articles. Maybe it is the headline that you use for those articles to get people to read in the first place. Maybe your introduction is off and it turns a lot of people off right away, which lowers your average read time, because if a lot of people come into your article, they read it for 10 seconds and you haven't grabbed them, they're going to leave, reducing your average read time. So think about the metrics that Medium is incentivizing to get you paid and model your content to fit that. Again, don't change yourself entirely. If you write 7 to 8 minute articles on average, don't all of a sudden write 3-minute articles because you think people are going to read all the way through. Find a happy medium and figure out what works, no pun intended, so you can be successful on Medium. Tip number 3 is to never let Medium's changes get in the way of you writing consistently and working on your craft consistently. So Medium will change its rules. Medium will have up and down flows to the content they're producing, the content they're promoting, the content they're moving away from, the guidelines, how you get paid, all that stuff. But you should always be working on your craft as a writer regardless. It doesn't matter what Medium is doing. You're still always going to write. Or at least you still should always be wanting to have a writing career, period. So you don't have to publish every single day. A lot of people, including myself, have said things along the lines of, publishing 3 to 5 times a week is the ideal range. I still think that's the ideal range, but there isn't a perfect correlation with the amount of articles you write and the amount of money that you get paid. So spend time working on your craft, and this is something that I'm focusing on more recently myself. So I've noticed, my earnings have gone up and down. Part of that has to do with Medium, but part of that has to do with me working on my craft and continuing to stretch myself creatively, and understanding that just because I've been in the game writing on Medium for 5 years, that I'm not granted any sort of special privileges or access to views, which leads me to my next tip. This is just a general life tip that I use and teach in my self-improvement writing, and that's understanding that the world isn't fair and that nobody owes you anything. Medium doesn't owe you a darn thing, right? Nobody is forcing you to write on Medium. Nobody says that Medium is some charity that is supposed to just grant your wishes as a writer and make you a bunch of money, right? So I see a lot of writers complaining about Medium, the platform. Well, it's a platform that you don't own, which is why I always tell people, keep a personal blog. Go to the link below. In my description, you'll see a starting guide to help you start your own blog. Always store your content on another blog. Still bullish on Medium, but always maintain your own platform. And again, understand that these platforms don't owe you anything. You're supposed to use these platforms to build your career, and you're going to do that much more successfully if you have an attitude of personal responsibility versus thinking that Medium owes you something. And this leads me to my final quick and short tip, but it's the most important thing that you need to understand about Medium. Tip number 5 when it comes to Medium is that understand that there's nothing but upside to using the platform. There's no downside. I mean, you could get little to no views, but that's just a result that you don't want. It's not a downside. It doesn't harm you. It doesn't take anything away from what you're doing. You can always take content that you've published elsewhere and put it on Medium. So I always publish stuff on my personal blog, then I copy and paste it over to Medium. They allow you to do republished work. They just don't want you republishing the same work on Medium twice, but you can take work that you've done elsewhere and put it on Medium. It's basically a free engine to help you make money on the content that you should have already been wanting to write anyways. Don't say that you're going to quit writing because Medium isn't giving you what you want. You should be wanting to write regardless of what Medium is doing, right? So it's all upside. Remember that and go with the ebbs and flows so you can be successful. Okay, those are 5 quick tips to help you stay on track with Medium's evolving platform and changes. Make sure to check out all the cool stuff in the description below. I have a free 5-day email class that'll teach you the nuts and bolts of how to be successful on Medium. I also have a premium flagship course for those of you who want to dive right in. Just check out that link below and get started. There are a bunch of other links to starting your own blog, other resources, tools I use to build my platform, all that sorts of stuff. So just check that out below. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you get brand new videos when they come out. There should be some videos popping up in front of your face right now. Make sure to go check those videos out, and I'll see you on the next video.